Hello, my name is Céline and welcome to a new episode of my knitting podcast where I show my most recent finished objects, my current works in progress and yarn acquisitions. Can you believe it's already December? I posted my first YouTube video back in January this year. I've been having the best time ever just talking to people around the world about knitting. I think it's so wholesome and I'm hosting a knit along, and last night I was reading the chat and everyone was making friends and just speaking to each other, and I was just like on the verge of tears. Very grateful to be a knitter in the knitting community, and thank you for watching the videos, and obviously let me know what you're currently working on because that's my favorite part of posting these videos, is interacting with you and knowing what you're up to. So I guess now let's commence with my little update. You might have seen this finished object in my vlogs and on my Instagram, and I think it was a work in progress during the last podcast episode, but I've never talked about it after it was finished, and it is the Hon Bomber by Chic. I'm pretty certain this was the first big garment that I've knit from a knitting kit. This kit came with all the yarn, a tapestry needle, a little gauge measuring square, a little hazelnut chocolate, but also the ribbon and some snap buttons because this design is meant to have a snap closure all the way down. I ended up opting out of that because I was looking at some photos online and I just wasn't a fan of the look of the buttons. In most instances, it looked like it was tugging at the fabric, and I just knew for a fact I wasn't gonna do a good job at sewing because I'm so impatient at hand sewing, and that turned out well anyway because I do enjoy leaving my cardigans open most of the time. I've been having the best time wearing this since I finished it. It just makes me feel cute and trendy because of the oversized look. I feel quite cool in it. All these colors also make me feel extra bubbly, which I enjoy, and I think it's super sweet when you walk into a room looking all colorful and people smile because of the colors you're wearing. It's also such a good way to ease into colors. It's got so many different shades, but then it's got the whole beige back panel, and it does have some beige sections at the front as well. It's so easy to style because you can kind of pair it with anything. I couldn't say good enough things about this design. I love it so much. I guess the construction is not my favorite because it's knitted bottom up flat in the different panels that then have to be sewn together. However, I did enjoy it more than I was expecting, and I think it's due to the type of yarn. It's just got a really good stitch definition, so sewing is actually pretty simple and quite satisfying because you can really see everything line up beautifully and seamlessly. At the end of the day, it's knitted on 5.5mm needles, I believe, in stockinette, so it works up really, really quickly. I got to try several new techniques with this piece, which is always so exciting when I have to look up a new tutorial and challenge myself to try something new. But the main technique was obviously intarsia. I had never done it before. I was quite intimidated initially, but I think this was the ultimate best first intarsia experience ever because the intarsia design is very simple, so it's perfect to learn the concept of it. You're also only ever working with two skeins at the same time, so you don't get a jungly mess out of your skeins either, so that's really nice. I guess you could consider seaming up the sleeve a little bit of a new technique that I've tried just because there were increases along the arm, and yeah, just had to figure out how to make sure that they looked good and lined up correctly. It was relatively simple, I must say. I was really surprised, and I give thanks to this yarn. It's just probably the best yarn that you can practice seaming with, I would say. One thing about this yarn is that it does pill a little bit more than you'd want it to. I mean, you never really want stuff to pill, but this is just a little bit more than what's acceptable, I think. It's only a little bit bad in certain spots of the cardigan. For example, the back is pretty nice. I can't really see any pilling. So most of it happens below the arm and on the side of the body where the arm rests. You can see that there a little bit. Sometimes you just have to be patient and gently pull some of the pilling off. I always say that it's good to do a little bit at a time so that then you don't have to do loads in one sitting. Another technique that I've tried for this cardigan was joining the front and back panels with 3 needle cast off or something like that. That was a really nice way to join. I enjoyed doing that. It was satisfying, super easy. I'm going to take the opportunity to mention one of my favorite knitting tutorial channels on YouTube, Very Pink Knits. She's where I learn most techniques that I don't know. I love her. She's super good at explaining. She has a nice little camera setup. I'll link her down below in case you're also interested in some knitting tutorials. It was my first time shaping a neckline by gradually binding off the stitches as I knit more rows, which felt a bit weird because the bound off stitches were just like little steps, which really annoyed me. But then I picked up for the neckline and obviously that's gone. One last thing that I should mention is that this strip of color that is now burgundy should have been like a mid-tone limey blue that I didn't love too much, so I decided to just switch it out, not putting in my cardigan, and just repeat a burgundy section on the shoulder, and I really enjoy that. I would happily knit it again. It's absolutely not a bad memory in my past. I do have quite a few leftovers from this project, and I was thinking that with a few of the colors I could try and make the Celeste mittens by Petite Knit, depending on whether or not I'm able to hit gauge. But yeah, I love this piece so much. It might be one of my favorites that I've made this year. It's time to talk about my bubblegum cardigan that I self-drafted and I was wearing in my previous video. And announcement, I will make the pattern. She is a simple boxy fit cropped drop shoulder cardigan with stockinette double folded collar, double knitted button band, and we've got some ribbing on the sleeves and the body. The back is shaped with short rows, the body is knitted flat, and then the sleeves are picked up. German short rows shape the shoulder, and then the arm is knit in the round. The gauge for this pattern is 17 stitches. The yarn I used is the Cardigan New Life Wool in the shade 4220 Pink. I got it from Beautiful Knitters, and let me read the label. The yarn is made from 100% old sweaters collected at recycling stations. So 65% of this is recycled wool and 35% is recycled mixed fibers. There are 200 meters in 100 grams, and it is really affordable yarn because 100 grams is like £7.50, which is amazing. And for a size small of this cardigan, I used 5 skeins. While this yarn is nice and rustic, it does have some pretty good stitch definition. And I kind of regret not holding it with a mohair just because I think specifically in this color, it would have looked extra cute with a bit of fluff and a bit of halo. But either way, I'm obsessed. I'm specifically in love with the darker pink specks. I don't know if the camera picks it up, but it just gives it a little bit of a tweedy look that's quite subdued. Also, a little fun fact, I noticed that the gauge on my sleeves is tighter than the gauge on my body, and this is because the body is knitted flat and the sleeves are knitted in the round. To create stockinette stitch flat, you obviously have to alternate knit and purl rows, and my purling is looser than my knitting, so overall the body turned out a bit looser in gauge. On the other hand, the sleeves are knitted in the round, so always knitting because we're always working on the right side of the work. And my knit stitches are a bit tighter, so that's why that turned out that way. And honestly, it doesn't bother me at all. This is my encouragement to you to just not really care about these sorts of things. That's also the beauty of hand knitting. This is the proof that you've made it with your own hands, one stitch at a time. Why get rid of that evidence? So chuffed with my bubblegum cardigan. And I'm so ready for the Christmas holidays. I've reserved a lot of time in my brain to write this pattern up. And I promise you, test call will be out before the new year. Hopefully. Very quickly, I wanted to show you my rainbow scarf that was in my last vlog. This, I barely consider a finished object because I made it in like 2 hours because the yarn is just so huge. It's hand spun. It's by No Moths Allowed, and I got it from Unravel Festival in September. And this is just a garter stitch scarf, and when I casted it on, I had this vision, okay, let me do twisted rib in the beginning and then some sort of this and that afterwards, and it's just getting so complicated. I very quickly realized that there was no point in coming up with crazy stitch patterns for this because they were just going to get lost in the complexity of this yarn, so I just went with garter stitch. That's all I have to say about my rainbow scarf. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Oh, my ring just fell. How do we feel about Woozy wearing jewelry? I never wear jewelry because first of all, I'm a bit lazy, but also it's just not a habit of mine, but I really want to make it a habit because when I see someone with a lot of jewelry, I think it looks so good, insanely good, right? And I really want to be that jewelry wearer, but then I get into the habit for 2 weeks and then I drop it. How can I make it a habit? People. Last finished object are my frost mittens by Berg. They've already been a main character in my previous videos, so I'm not gonna go into the whole technical side of making these, but I'll take the opportunity to answer a couple of frequently asked questions about mitten knitting. People always ask me what needles I use for my mittens, and the answer is sock needles. These are my shorties by Addy. I'll put the link in the description box. I also posted a what's in my knitting kit video a couple of weeks back, so I'll link that below as well if you're interested in seeing what tools I use. But this is the best tool that makes it the easiest for me to make a mitten. I despise magic loop. I don't enjoy it. I stay away from it as much as I can. I just go straight to my sock needles, which also have their cons. The main one being that the needles are so short that your hands have nothing to rest on, and that could be quite tiring and uncomfortable. I got used to it. Also, I'm so in awe of colorwork mittens just forming. That distracts me, and I don't really think too hard about how it feels knitting it. This Addy pair has one shorter, more blunt needle, and then a longer, slightly pointier one. And this longer one is the one that you actually form the stitches with. This is not great when you're making socks, actually, especially when you're turning the work to make the heel and then making the stitches with the shorter, blunter tip. It gets really hard in those instances. So I would recommend the Chic ones because those are sharper. But I must say, for mittens, I'm quite happy with them. I have a bunch of them and I have no intention of substituting them. And for the thumbs, sadly, there is nothing I can do but to use DPNs, which I enjoy using DPNs. I don't have a problem with DPNs. I much prefer them to magic loop. But when we're talking about color work, I don't love DPNs because I have yet to master my tension moving from one needle to the other when it comes to the floats. Just kind of have to hang tight and practice. But yeah, that's kind of like the only way that I can do my thumbs is with DPNs. I will not do it with magic loop, thank you. But that's also an option if you prefer magic loop from DPNs. Another question I get asked about mitten knitting is how I do the color work. And I just knit one strand continental and one strand English throwing. Lastly, I see a lot of people worrying about mitten sizes and how to adjust the pattern to make it fit. In most cases, when it comes to colorwork mittens, the pattern will be for one size only, but all you have to do, and this is typically mentioned in the pattern, is just change the gauge, change the yarn, or change the needle size to make something bigger or smaller to fit your hands. So you don't have to worry if you think the glove is going to be too small for you. All you have to do is some quick calculations to understand what gauge you have to hit in order to fit your measurements. Done with the finished objects, let's head to the works in progress. But first, lippy time. I often get asked what makeup I wear, so I thought I'd share my lip products that I always wear in my videos. So I'm wearing the Laneige Lip Sleeping Mask. I know it's a sleeping mask, but I just love the look of it, and the type of shine that it gives is just so healthy, and it looks like I just drank a lot of water. I don't know. And I always top it up with a MAC lipstick. Today the shade is Whirl, which is a deeper like brown shade. The other shade I wear is Velvet Teddy, which is just a bit pinkier and lighter. And then the makeup for the rest of my face, I'll also link down below. And I'll move on to works in progress. The first one is a self-drafted pattern that I'm making as a Christmas gift for my brother. It's a drop shoulder sweater. It has no sleeves, so now it kind of looks like nothing. I did put on the collar yesterday, but I want to make it again just because it doesn't sit the way I want it to. It sits like this rather than against the chest. So far, I have self-drafted 2 designs for which I did not take any notes while I was working up the sample. So now I'm having to, take out the finished object and like count the stitches and try to reconstruct the pattern to write it. So I've learned from my mistakes, and for this third self-drafted pattern, I'm actually writing it as I go. So hopefully that'll be a bit less painful. This will not be a gender-specific pattern. I think it'll look good on anyone. It's a drop shoulder, and the back is shaped like so, with increases to create these nice little lines to decorate the back of the shoulder. I've included a little border on the neckline as well. And my favorite feature of this design are the edges. The neck edge is the only one that's currently finished, but as you can see, it's a stockinette double folded collar, and it's got a nice clean and crisp fold line, which I really, really enjoy. I am working this up so fast. I'm using the same yarn as I did for my bubblegum cardigan. So it's the New Life Wool by Cardigan. It's the same yarn, but I decided to knit this a little bit looser so that the fabric's just a bit drapier. Gauge on this is 16 stitches using 6mm needles. It is working up so easy and so fast. I can't say the same about the edging because that's knitted on smaller needles and it's just a little bit tougher on the hands because of that. So it's like a little bit of a pain, but it's just the edging, so it's fine. I really want to make this stockinette collar work. I want stockinette, and by giving up the rib, I'm also giving up all those beautiful stretching properties that avoid stuff like this from happening where the collar is a bit plopping forward. But yeah, I'll keep you posted. And I'll also work on this pattern during the Christmas holidays. I wanted to give this colorway a couple of moments to shine because it's so good. It's the shade 7140 and it's a deep purple with red, green, and blue specks. So it kind of gives this tweedy look, and I'll show you how it works up. I love it so much. It's so, so cute. My brother actually picked this shade himself back in July when he visited Beautiful Knitters, and I low-key said, do you want to pick a shade? And eventually I might make you something in it. This is the one he picked, and I bet you he forgot about it, so he also does not watch my videos unless I force him. So we're safe to show this today. Actually, all my works in progress today are Christmas gift knits. The next one is the cardigan number 8 by My Favorite Things Knitwear for my dad. And it's honestly so hard to show. I'm just gonna wear it. I put this on hold for a second just because I was fed up of knitting flat. I just wanted to knit in the round. Now keep in mind that this fits me pretty well because my dad is not tall, or he's not a big man. This is where we're at. I'm almost done with the body. I just need to knit a little bit more and then I'll go for the ribbing, and then it'll be the button band, and that's it. Now this pattern is born as a women's pattern, but then I saw a photo on Instagram of a guy wearing cardigan number 8 and it looked so, so good. I'm living life on the edge and also picked the wrong size, which I'm pretty sure I'm making the extra small, but I'll explain my thought process. So my dad's bust circumference is something like 105. I made him the zipper sweater by Petite Knit. That garment's bust circumference is 125 in the size that I made him. It was slightly large, so I could have gone with the smaller size, which that size finished circumference would have been 118, which is the finished circumference for this cardigan in the size extra small. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's what I'm doing. Gauge is 15 stitches for this one, so a really good gift knit because it also means you're not gonna spend your whole entire life on it. It does work up really fast. Just to show you the back, it's how it's shaped with increases. And then the edge at the front is rolling because I've yet to pick up for the double knitted button band, but it's going to be a V-neck. I have changed the decreases down the arm. So in the pattern, she changes the interval between the decreases. For a bit, you'll knit a decrease every X amount of rows, but then you change that and do more rapid increases closer to the wrist, which I thought would give a little bit more of a rounded and more feminine sleeve, so I just opted for an equal interval all throughout. I'm thankful to that person who commented under one of my previous videos for reminding me to put the buttons on the right and the buttonholes on the left, which is the opposite of what the pattern tells you because it's a women's pattern. On the same Beautiful Knitters trip, when my brother picked his color, my dad settled on his, and he went for the Hey Mama Wolf yarn. So we have the Skadi and the Mokosh. They are the same yarn, they're just different weights. So Skadi is thicker and Mokosh is thinner. I'm just holding them together to hit gauge for this cardigan. I'll put the shade on the screen because I don't have it with me currently, but I love this yarn so much because it is the softest merino in Europe. And every time I say that, it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but it's like generally what it says on the label. It actually is. It comes from a type of sheep whose fleece is crimped in a way which incorporates loads of air. So it's essentially whipped cream, but yarn version. It is genuinely so, so soft. And I think even the way it's plied really enhances the softness. It has a beautiful natural sheen, which is not common amongst non-superwash wools, so I think that's a super special feature. It is the most beautiful and buttery feeling to be working this yarn on wooden needles. Just for the sake of experiencing that, I think it's worth it. It's also not super expensive. I think it's £14 for 100 grams, so I would say that's not too bad. But yeah, I better get a move on and finish this before I fly back to Italy because Papa Woozy is nosy. Oh, hold on. We have a work in progress that is actually not a Christmas gift knit, and I had forgotten about it because I've had it on hold for a long time. I am making a terrazzo neck by Petite Knit, but before I show you, I just want to take a second and talk about the name of this pattern. Why is it called terrazzo? Terrazzo means balcony in Italian. The balcony neck. Let me show you my terrazzo neck. This is what it's looking like. So This project is a little bit of a pain because I decided to do some intarsia. The twisted rib on the side, I wanted one solid color, and then the stockinette in the center, I wanted this variegated yarn, which means that I have 3 different moments going on, but each one has a mohair tied to it, so it's 6 skeins hanging from this project. It's just really annoying. So the intention for this piece is to layer it under the coat that I bought in Paris. You may have seen my Paris vlog. It's my favorite video on my channel, so I do recommend you watch it because I had the most fun. But yeah, these recall the colors of that coat, and I want to layer it underneath just because it's more of a wrap moment and it doesn't really cover the neck. So having the terrazzo high neck will really give me that coverage and allow me to wear this when it's a bit chillier. It was my first time doing Italian cast on. I'm obsessed with it. Can we take a second? It's gorgeous. I love it. I have so much fun doing the Italian cast on because it looks outrageous when you're doing it. It looks like this. It just looks like nothing, but then you create this beauty. It's just crazy. I can't wrap my head around it. The way you create this is you cast on at the back and then you work it up to reach the shoulders, create a hole for the neck, and then come forward and knit the front, and then you pick up the stitches for the neck. So it could have been nice and easy breezy, but I decided to do intarsia and have 6 skeins hanging at all times, and I kind of regret it, but I do love the look of it, so I don't regret it, but then I regret it. For this nice petroleum blue, I'm using a yarn that I got from my friend's Karen's stash. I'm holding that with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in Dusty Dove blue, and then the hand-dyed variegated yarn I got from Lil Weasel Yarn Shop in Paris. It's from La Bien-Aimée. It's their Merino DK in the shade Ciel d'Orage. I'm holding that with the Isir Silk Mohair in the shade 6. Pooling is happening with the hand-dyed yarn. I don't mind it. However, I know that I would have preferred to have double the amount of this hand-dyed yarn, and I would have done some color work alternating one stitch from one skein and the next stitch from the other, and that would have created more of like a speckly sort of thing. But imagine how many skeins would be hanging off of my project then. That would actually be a nightmare. So actually glad I don't have an extra skein of that. While I worked on this, I noticed that the first stitch of the variegated yarn when I would do the intarsia was quite loose, and that bothered me quite a lot. So I experimented with a few different techniques, and you can see in the most recent rows that has been fixed. Obviously, when you're doing a knit stitch, you'll wrap your yarn on the right needle anti-clockwise. What I did here is wrap it clockwise, so the opposite way. And then when I'm on the opposite side working that needle where I just maneuvered it differently, I would just knit it or purl it through the back loop to untwist it. While it is a little bit of a pain to knit this with intarsia, it did work up pretty fast, I must say, because it's got a big gauge anyway. I'm very excited to wear it under my coat, you know. I don't have any neck, so this will be my first one. The next work in progress. I started last week and casted it on, I read the pattern, I worked a couple rows, but then I had to leave the house. So I picked it back up the morning after. Despite me knowing that I am Dory and have the worst memory, I don't know why I was feeling extra confident. I trusted myself and I said, I don't need to read the pattern again. I totally remember what I need to do. Obviously, I remembered wrong. I achieved this, which is to bring you some clarity, I'm going to show you a photo of what the finished object should look like. So it's the Chic hexagon bag by Hooks and Needles, who are kindly sponsoring today's video. But yeah, it's very, very cute. So I decided to behave with my second attempt. So I made sure to read the pattern, which was great. And then just because I trusted myself so much the first time, I decided to really not trust myself the second time. So I also watched the video tutorial because they come with video tutorials. And yeah, we have our first little panel and it's so, so cute. And I just want to show you what was in my box this month. Okay, so let's open the box. We have 3 skeins of yarn, of beautiful bamboo yarn. I love bamboo yarn because it's so soft. This one's called Bamboo Touch, made in Portugal, 100% bamboo viscose. I love the color. I think it really looks nice with this black ensemble that we've got going on. Double pointed needles, circular needles, and then something I had never tried before are tension rings. I've just started to feel confident with my continental knitting, so I've been using these beautiful swan-shaped rings. In fact, with a double pointed needle, still, I'm finding it more comfortable to knit continental just because knitting English throwing, I feel like the needle's always in the way and I'm always like smacking it. So these have been super handy. These boxes have been keeping me really inspired since I started receiving them a couple of months back. And in my last video, I was talking about how important it is to keep on welcoming inspiration. These boxes give you just that, which then will translate to consistency and commitment to the craft. And that's when you'll be able to really feel the like incredible mental health benefits behind knitting and crocheting. I know this is gonna sound crazy, but knitting really helped me become an adult. I think the best resolution someone can set for themselves is to commit to a new hobby, because then that just dominoes into even more benefits all around. It's great. All right, let's move on to yarn acquisitions. Just for transparency, these yarn acquisitions are gifted. I am so grateful and blessed to be able to try these yarns and share them with you guys in my videos, and they're so beautiful. So the first batch I got from Knitting Fever, who distributes Juniper Moon Farm, and I had the pleasure of trying this brand before and I love it so much. So I got the beautiful Moonshine. This is a luxury blend of Peruvian Highland wool, extra fine baby alpaca and organic silk. So it's 40 alpaca, 40 wool and 20% silk. 100 grams, 180 meters, and the shade is 08. It's beautiful. I love the sheen that's produced by the silk, and I love the softness and drapiness from the alpaca and the warmth from the wool. It's like this yarn has the best of all worlds. The shade is gorgeous. It reminds me of like a mountain snow berry. Red looks good on anyone. That's why it's so good. It's timeless. It's gorgeous. It just brings out the best of everyone. I love it. I also got another shade of the same Moonshine yarn, this time in color 02, which is a beautiful cream. And I actually don't have a garment in this shade, which is crazy. I'm beyond excited to be able to make something in this yarn composition that I love so much. Then I also got it in this insane brown shade. I don't know what it is about this brown. I think it's because it's got some like lavender undertones to it. I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but it's so special, unlike anything I've ever seen before. And I do love me some brown. This is the shade 73. It's absolutely magical. It looks really good with the white, but I don't know if I want to give up the beauty and richness of this color by breaking it up. I feel like it deserves its own moment. I don't know, I'll think about it, but it's so dreamy. The other yarn they sent me is also by Juniper Moon Farm, and it's Harriet Fine in this insane electric aqua blue. It's so bright. I love it. So this one's 75% alpaca and 25% polyamide. The color is 2067. We've got 420 meters and 100 grams, so it's got loads in there. I have some mohair in a very similar shade from Drops, and I wonder if I should hold them together to make something. Makes me think of a mermaid or like an aqua fairy or something. Don't have any other words. I'm so happy to announce that the next yarn acquisition is intended for a pattern that I've been promising for quite a few months. So you know that really oversized 5-strand mohair wrap robe-like cardigan? We are making the second sample, which will be very different from the first one, because the first one is all pastel-y colors, 5 strands of mohair, but the second sample I'll make with 1 strand of black lace weight yarn. I know, very different vibes. I'm finally knitting with black. This will look so magical. 1 strand on really chunky needles. I can't recall if I did it on 10 or 15. I have it written down somewhere, but already that look will look so interesting. I'm so happy to be working with Holst Garn. I'm using their Lucia yarn, which I've used before for my mittens, for my frost mittens. So this is 42% alpaca, 35 mulberry silk, 13% fine merino wool, and 10% yak. So this is a substitute for mohair, which might work better for you if you're too sensitive to mohair. It's the shade Licorice. We've got 25 grams and 200 meters. I've got 4 skeins for the project, and I cannot wait to dive in and make this pattern happen because it's been a long time coming. So I've finished the things on my list to show you today. In case you're still not tired of me talking about knitting, there are many more hours of footage of me talking about knitting and yarn on my channel. Hopefully, I'll see you on there. If you haven't already, type up your podcast in the comments because I would love to read it. Let me know what your plans for December are. Where are you going for New Year's? What are you doing for Christmas? What are you eating for Christmas? That's the most important thing. I cannot wait for Christmas food. In fact, it's lunchtime and I should go eat. But I thank you guys so much for sticking till the end of the video and hanging out with me today. I had the best time sharing all about my knits. I will leave my Instagram on screen in case you'd like to follow my creations more in real time. I'm also currently doing Woozy Advent, opening my tea and chocolate advent calendars every day on Instagram stories, and I'm also posting it on TikTok, so I'll leave the links to that down below. But for now, I'll say goodbye and I hope to see you in my next video.